everybody. Welcome to the Black and Gold. This is HiBruiNation, episode 7. I'm joined as always with my buddy Christian here. We got one guy missing tonight, but he'll be back next time. We're gonna keep on our regular 2-week schedule here now that we are officially in HiBruiNation. Well, we got a couple topics. So we're going to do some roundup of the free agency. We're going to address the Bruins' 25th overall pick and Dean Letourneau. And we're going to kind of do some predictions of where we kind of see ourselves before the season starts. And then we'll kind of revamp that too as, the offseason continues, see if any other additions come on. And we might also just touch upon how we still have yet to sign Jeremy Swayman. Without further ado, why don't we get started? Christian, how we doing?
Doing great. How you doing?
Well, better now that we actually had a first round pick in the first time in 3 years maybe. So
I don't care if we have one. Let's see how he does.
Well, so he's young for sure. He's 6'7", 215 pounds. So the Bruins are clearly advocating for more size. And that's kind of been given by the rest of the signings that in free agency that we've also gotten. So it just seems like the Bruins are kind of pivoting back to the old ways of the big bad Bruins in the 1980s. I guess the good thing to compare about Dean.
Happen.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know, but we also need a little bit of speed, I think, too. That was like a couple things I think we could have addressed in free agency. I think in a way we kind of got that. There's some implications for next season. But Dean's a big man. He's being compared to Tage Thompson. But the problem is he's a prospect, right? And he is a project from what people are saying about him.
So wasn't Tage.
So wasn't Tage, right? And, look how many people kind of gave up on him and look what he turned into in Buffalo. So I think it's going to depend,
People are shitting on him for last year just for what? The year before he scored whatever, 50 was it? And last year they're saying it was a bad year. He still scored 37 goals.
You're allowed sophomore slumps. You're allowed slump years.
But even still, 37 isn't an awful year.
Yeah, I mean, you can't score 50 every that's like generational talent or borderline elite talent that I would say is scoring 50 plus. That's a Pasternak and Ovechkin. A lot of these. Yeah, those are those kinds of players. But to be compared to a guy like Tage Thompson, who is Buffalo's 1C, I mean, that's Bruins fans got to kind of be excited about that and be like, wow, okay, so maybe we did draft a future 1C. He's going to need time to develop. He's going to be C. And
we have that, though. I think we have that time.
We have time. Right, we have plenty of time. We have Coyle's contract, who's up in 2 years, I believe. And I think he might not be ready in 2 years, but Patra might be able to take that second C from him. We do have Lindholm locked up at 7 years, but I don't think that's really going to prohibit, Dean from, making that splash if he makes that splash. And I think it's going to need to come from him. He's going to need to want that. And I think he joined the organization knowing that this is an Original Six franchise, and being part of an Original Six franchise, you're going to be open to a lot of scrutiny. That's just the way it is in hockey. But I think he seems excited. He seems to want it. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to kind of look at some of the development camp that's been going on, but I've seen some videos, and he knows how to use his body. And that's kind of the thing that excites me the most about it. The only downside is we don't know how his scoring is going to translate into the NCAA. So that's going to be something that remains to be seen. But from what I can see out of development camp is that the guy definitely needs to put on muscle. He was getting knocked around a little bit more than I would have liked to see from someone who's 6'7". But imagine 6'7", 215. That's a pretty thin guy, right? That for height and weight. So you can imagine he's probably going to put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle over the summer. He's going to develop at BC. I say 2 years, then he signs his ELC. It all depends on how quickly he develops, but I don't think the Bruins are going to pull him from BC sooner than 2 years.
No, and back to what you're saying with the big bad Bruins, I just think that's the way the league is going now, is back to that bit bigger physicality. Look at the Stanley Cup winners the past 2 years, Vegas and Florida, two bigger, more physical teams. So
I
like I think we're heading in the right direction.
I think what kind of I want to say about that with Vegas and Florida too is just that I think Florida just had an awesome forecheck that it was so very difficult to beat, and the coaching was just all there. And Bobrovsky was standing on his head. By the way, congratulations
And they also
to
just
the Panthers too as
completely
well.
built into that though this year
Oh,
with
they
the
did.
amount all the acquisitions, Kyle Oposo, uh, Tarasenko, like all the people that they added this year just made it so that they could get past that hump that they couldn't beat it versus Vegas.
Yeah, no one was beating Vegas last year, and Vegas's defense last year was just stupid studly. I mean, you have guys like Petrangelo, Shea Theodore. No, they didn't have Nate Schmidt when they won. I can't remember who else was on the defensive core, but those two names alone, those are big names, and I think it wasn't Aiden Hill that bailed them out either, but a lot of effort from Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, and all those guys, and of course, Jonathan Marchessault, who is no longer part of the Vegas Golden Knights. But
I
yeah, I
saw
can't.
that one coming.
We so did I. Actually, Alex and I got into a debate with it in our group chat, and he's like, "No, they're going to do everything that they can to sign Marcia." So I'm like, they can't. They will not. They don't have the capacity to do it. They're going to
That
prioritize
team
getting a
has
little bit younger.
yet to commit to anyone.
Yeah, they're getting a bad reputation, I think. And Matt said it in our chat too. He goes, "Oh, that's been that way since the inception of the team. The ownership just wants to win." I'm like, right, but that doesn't make you a desirable place to play. At the same time, in my opinion, it's just like it's a big market, it's a big money market, right? It's in Vegas, but outside of that, that's really it. If I want to go play somewhere, I want to sign long term and have some loyalty and kind of anchor a little bit, especially if I'm a not toxic, a top six forward.
You're a
Um,
toxic forward too.
I am a toxic forward. I'm more of a toxic defenseman. Um, but I think you're right. There's something to be said about adding some size, and I think size is important. I think also knowing how to play with your body in those situations and kind of how to, kind of manage the transition game to being so tall, because you're going to be at a slight disadvantage, with some of the shorter and faster guys that are more aerodynamic than you can be. But I'm excited for this guy. Um, it was a 25th pick, and we oftentimes forget that David Pastrnak was a 25th overall pick too. And we needed to see how he'd play without a Bergeron or a Krejci at his center, and he excelled. He still scored over 100 points. So I mean, never knock late first round picks. Not always in the top 10 or even the top 5 do you get
Dude,
winners.
you never know what's gonna happen. Look at Pavel Zacha coming out of the 6th round.
Yeah,
Like
Marchand out of I think 3 and Bergeron out of 2. They're depth.
it's all about developmental.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go off and say this too, and this is not even hockey related, but look at Tom Brady, 6th round,
I was just gonna say
199th
that too.
overall. I mean, and he's arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. Um, it's this guy's gonna take time. I think the Bruins fans need to have a little bit of patience with him, and we're gonna have to see where he develops. I think being a bigger body, what concerns me too is gonna be if he decides to be a more physical player, because at that height, it gets difficult. You've seen Chara at the end of his career too. When he got that knee injury, he was never the same. So I hope he learns to develop that technique to be able to have a sustained career. And we'll just see where it goes. I'm very anxious to see how he develops in BC. Okay, yeah, free agency, right? So as per the title, the Beary Nice Acquisitions. We I think we're a much deeper team for sure. Just to kind of summarize, we got Lindholm, Zadorov, Max Jones, Corpusalo. It's not a great one, but it's fine. And we got back Vinny Lettieri. So we did have him a while back, if my memory serves me correct. The name just sounds familiar. I think he was a draft choice by Boston. Lindholm we got at 7 years, 7.75 million. It's an overpay. I think I would have liked to have him at 7 million flat. But I bet you other teams were in the mix for Elias Lindholm, and I think that that extra money guaranteed his presence in Boston, which I think we so desperately needed.
And we guaranteed there were other teams willing to pay him more than that, but he was willing to I think he was ready to come to capable, ready team.
I think he saw what he had in Calgary in Boston. So I think he knew in Boston that he'd be the 1C. He knew he would have a much larger role than what he had in Vancouver. And I think even Zadorov alluded to that too when he spoke to the media.
He's going to be like a Bergeron-esque type of player. Like they're not going to really like need to rely on him offensively. He can contribute, but like wherever they end up, which we'll get to, wherever he's going to end up fitting on the lines, there's plenty of talent or younger talent that him being a veteran can sit there and help develop us.
A lot of the advanced analytics suggest that this is not a good signing for Boston, and I'm going to actually disagree because he's only 1 year removed from a 0.8 points per game season, and then he was consistently at that for 3 years when he started hitting his prime, and he did that on a depleted Calgary team. And then this year,
and you're also talking about what last year was the 1 year he didn't.
Yeah, this past year was the year he did not. People are suggesting that's a decline.
He started in Calgary, right?
Yeah, and then he moved to Vancouver, and so people aren't accounting for that trade time.
From the beginning of the year, he was under a microscope. Like, they were looking to see how he would do. He was playing for his contract that he just now signed in Boston, and he was playing on whether or not what teams wanted to get him for that playoff push last year and what they were willing to give up. So, like, I don't know what he just played out of. He just played for that contract. Now, yeah, he has to live up to that or what, but that the hard part is behind him. Now he can kind of like, all right, I am the 1C on this team. I need to. He can just kind of like take a step back, relax, and play his game.
Yeah, they're speculating right now that it's gonna be Zacha on the left, Lindholm in the center, and Pasta on the right. And I think that's a really good line. You have Zacha, another body who can go and retrieve pucks. Lindholm,
checker.
Yeah, Lindholm has an excellent hockey IQ. The plays he was making in Vancouver were still really, really good. And in the playoffs, he started to take off in Vancouver. So people don't understand. It takes time, especially when you transition to a new team that's a new system in the middle of a season. It's not easy to kind of pick up. People say hockey's hockey. It's very fluid, but coaches coach differently. And I think he's a kind of guy.
Not only that, just like the connection you have with your team. If you play with them for 5 games versus Pasta and Marchand right now, how many years have they've been on the team together since Pasta has been on this team? It's almost secondhand nature that they kind of know where they don't even have to look, and like they know where they're going to be crashing or where they're going to be coming out of. I'm in a pickle, and they know that this person's they can just do a little flick up the boards and just kind of telepathy.
It's training camp too. It's training camp too.
Well, that's another thing. So, and that's why Lindholm is going to feel comfortable because he now has this entire summer at least to develop that chemistry with hopefully multiple people, because unfortunately, fucking, oh my God. Bruins coach
Montgomery.
I don't know why I can never get that guy's name. But once you say, I'm like, fucking moron. But I know Monty. But one thing you and I bitched about last year, he's gonna change the lineup.
Like, he's not. Now he's not. For sure, he's not. With what I think Don.
Sorry, just like the weather, just like the weather around here. I'll believe it when I see it.
Dude, I think Don Sweeney also did one of the most important things this offseason was bringing in very well-established NHL players in Lindholm. He's not going to move his positioning.
Can we fire that man?
Who?
Don.
No, not yet.
Do we give him one more year?
I give him one more year. I actually want to see how well this 25th overall pick works out because if it's a hit, we still don't even know what Lysell looks like. So I think that's another option too. So I'm not. We need to move on from 2015. He botched that. Everyone knows he botched that. A lot of players.
Can you imagine Matthew Barzal on this team though?
I mean, yeah, but like we already had, Bergeron and Krejci. I don't know, it was a difficult thing. We have actually nobody on this team anymore from the 2015 draft. We just lost to Brusque. So
Yeah,
with
the other two are
people,
no-namers. I don't even
we
remember the names.
Senyshyn and Zaboral.
Sure.
But we're moving on from 2015. But I think Don did exactly what he needed to do and take away lineup altering.
I will, yeah. As a avid Sweeney hater, it wasn't a bad off season. They did address some things that we needed to do. One of the things, again, you and I did go back and forth on was that whole Grizzlick losing him. I'm sad to see him go.
I'm not.
Whatever. I don't know. Just as a hometown kid, I always felt for him, just like how I also just kind of feel something if we ever how it happened to like lose Coyle. He wasn't with us this whole time, but being a
Coyle would
Charlestown
hurt.
kid,
Coyle would hurt. Coyle would hurt for sure. I mean,
wasn't
he's
Grizzlick here his whole career?
What was that?
Wasn't Grizzlick here his whole career?
It was. No, it was definitely sad to see him go. I'm not I'm not going to deny whenever you see a hometown kid, grow up, get to play for his favorite team, and then go, it's
hometown and
difficult.
everything.
Yeah,
But
I mean, he grew up 15 minutes from TD Garden.
His dad does the Celtics to Boston, the Celtics to Bruins.
Yeah, and it's definitely sad to see him go, but I was happy to see him go. In many ways because it got us.
But yeah, it's again that's where I was getting to. So those additions, again, we're still waiting on Sway because we already got rid of the other goalie. So we fucking need someone.
We need someone, and it's not going to be Corpusalo. I'll kill myself. It's not going to be great. I'm not going to lie. It's going to go crazy. I will lose my mind if
No, it'll be
starts, but it's not going to happen.
It'll be what's his name?
No, Brandon Bussy is not
Bussy
starting. Yeah, he's been moved down to Providence already, and that's where they kind of see him. But he's
he needs to develop.
Yeah, I mean, moving on to kind of Zadorov too. I mean, Lindholm, we're gonna see. I think he'll get 60 to 70 points this year, and I think maybe next year he might actually even elevate that. We're gonna see. When you're playing with a player like Pasta, you're gonna get points basically off of assists. You're playing with Zacha. You're gonna get a lot of assists. I don't think he's gonna be a goal scorer, but he's gonna be an assist.
Yeah, Zacha also has to wake up.
Yeah, he needs to in the playoffs for sure, but I think in the regular season
he had a great regular season. But from the last that we just saw him, I feel like he kind of needs to reprove himself, and that's a way to do it with a pure 1C. He wasn't. Zacha was playing a lot of center, and he's mainly a winger.
Yeah, one thing that we learned last year, and I think it's kind of evident now, is that Zacha is not a center. He's better on his wing, and I think that's where
what he reminds me of a lot of is Marchand. When he first started, Marchand was a center when he first came into the league.
Yeah, some people transition better on the wing, and that's fine. And I mean that's fine, and that's okay. I mean the offense is definitely deeper, even just with the addition of Lindholm and Max Jones. So we got Max Jones too. So I think he's going to be a depth piece. We got him at 1 year, $1 million. I think he'll be the fourth line left winger. Next to Beecher and either Brazeau or Kastilic, who we also acquired in the Corpusalo trade. So we have a ton of options right now, and I think at least on the bottom six effort with that. The defense got much, much deeper. If you think about it, we already had Wotherspoon and Peak that were pretty much some of the statistically best defensemen in the playoffs. Obviously thanks a lot to Swayman too, who stood on his head. But you also had Lowry playing with McAvoy, and Lowry.
I forgot about Lowry.
Lowry is showing you a whole bunch that he can
Ian White.
Yeah, you mean Ian Mitchell?
Mitchell. Why I say Ian White?
Ian Mitchell's still down in Providence, but he'll
But
probably.
I'm just like that's a younger.
Yeah, he's got some time. I actually went to Providence and saw him play. He's got some stuff going on, so we'll see. But definitely bolstering with Zadorov. I mean, that's why I think Sweeney did his job, and he said so Lindholm's going to be with McAvoy. That's going to be
100%.
And then he basically said by doing this acquisition, he said to Monty, I'm like, yeah, Zadorov's going to be with Carlo. So Lowry or Wotherspoon,
that makes sense.
Or Mitchell, he's taking away Monty's like methodology of like I don't mind it where you're kind of like, all right, if you're playing well, you deserve to elevate in the lines, but if you're also playing well in the line you're playing on, why mess?
Elevate that line.
Yeah, just keep it the way it is and play that line more because clearly they're clicking, and then you trust them enough instead of elevating and players and then moving players down. I think you just play that line more. I think that's a better way of doing it as opposed to just if you're screwing with the system. Like we're not gonna argue this. That third line has been set. It's gonna be Trent, Patrick, Geeks for sure. That third line, I think, is the only solidified piece that the Bruins are really going to have, and they're not going to mess with it. It was really good. Patra's healing up very well. He was in a non-contact jersey for development camp, and they don't want to risk him getting injured again.
That's exactly all it is. They're protecting
Yep.
their assets.
Yeah, he's 20 years old, and he already
Why
has
make him?
stellar hockey
Why
IQ.
make him go? Why make him go? Get risk anything right now.
I'm not
even any close to preseason.
I'm not willing to do it. I think Patra has an extremely bright future, and it's kind of ironic because we went from a bunch of left-handed centers to now a bunch of right-handed centers. Some people are predicting Kastilic to start on the center and the fourth line. I actually want him on the right wing, so that way we have at least one left-handed center, and Beecher can do it. And Beecher's also showing you something that he's finally elevated, to play at the level, and I think he's shown it, and I think that's what Don's doing. We have our backup in Corpusalo. Again, I'm not crazy about the term. The money fits for a backup goaltender. I don't expect him here long term.
Is he a one way?
Yeah.
What are you gonna say? I mean, him
Well,
and
here's the
Bus,
thing.
if we brought Bussy up for anything.
No, it wouldn't happen unless one of them got injured. But I
Yeah,
don't see
exactly.
Corpusalo here long term. I think he plays out the year. We'll see how well he does, and then maybe they buy him out, and then it saves us some money in the long run. Or they try to trade him and attach a third round pick to the trade just so that they eat the money. Either way, I don't see him here. Swayman, obviously, we have to address. Swayman's going to get signed. Both parties agreed not to file for arbitration, which was critical, I think, because last year.
Why do we want to go to that?
No,
because
that's the thing. Swayman said he didn't want to.
He has a reason to want to because you literally just go put on any game except for maybe game 2 against Toronto, or I forget his one bad game.
Yeah, but he
no, game 2 was the only Olmark game. Sorry.
Yeah, but after last year, he said, no, I'm good. Like, I don't ever want to go through something like that again because it's kind of like people sitting at a table justifying their own worth. Like, you know what I mean? It's not something any player wants to sit through and discuss about how much they think their value is and then how much an arbitrator tells you how much you're worth. It's kind of it's not a great thing to sit through. He's an RFA. The fact that both of them did not want to go to arbitration tells me that there is a deal in the works. There's probably just some minor details that are left.
How much, after everything now, how much left do we have in cap?
We got 8.6 million.
Sign him for 8.5.
I see him at 8.25. I don't think
whatever
much more than that, unless you want to start the team with less players on the roster going into training camp. I think he takes it at 8.25. What I think might be holding up that discussion is whether or not he gets a full no move clause for the entirety of his contract versus maybe the last year or so. I don't know, but I don't know why you would want to move him. So there's probably like some little things here and there that are holding up
a couple bonuses, this, that.
Yeah, and Don needs to be careful with the bonuses too because they got slapped that year. Bergeron and Krejci, were here and they got slapped for overages on the bonuses, basically circumventing the cap, which made it so that we couldn't have $4 million in additional space last year, so we were penalized for it. So we basically paid off an escrow. But I think he'll be here. It'll be fine. The team is going to be, I think, like I said, it's a lot deeper. Even with those addition of it was not that many players.
Yeah, I mean, look at last year. Everyone was so worried about this team, not having our arguably two of our best centers in team history. But never mind, just like two center stones of at least you and I are watching the Bruins, two of our Mount Rushmore Bruins.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
going from that team last year of everyone having all those concerns, how they're going to play without them, this, that, and proving that we were until maybe 20 games left, we were right there on the top.
They were
Couple things
tired.
fell off.
They were tired. And this
No,
year,
I'm not saying anything. I'm saying that was a learning experience. They got that development, they got that experience, and this year now we're going into all right. We know what Beecher can do. We know what There's only a couple question marks, with the signings or as you said, Lysell. But going into this year, so much better expectations.
we're going to have a gauntlet this season, though. I don't know if you took a look at the schedule. So, Bruins fans, in case you guys haven't looked at the schedule, the latter half of our season is filled with games. So, I don't know if that's going to be good, if it's going to be bad. It's going to be dependent where we stand in the standings. Hopefully, we're in strong command of a playoff spot by the time that gauntlet comes by. It's a significant amount of games in a short period of time. It's pretty hefty. And so, hopefully we're retaining a playoff spot by then, and we don't need to necessarily worry about playing every game at 100%. I mean, obviously we want to see the Bruins win as much as possible, but we also don't want to risk injury going into round one of the playoffs, because that's when things get dicey. Maybe we give Corpy 50% of those games as it goes. So it all depends. That's what kind of scares me this season. I think the Bruins have the talent to be a playoff team. For sure. I guess where we kind of see where our lines are. I mean, for me, my lines that I would start on day one are pretty obvious for me. I would have Zacha, Lindholm, Pasternak, Marchand, Coyle, and Lysell. A lot of people actually have Lysell on the third and Geeky on the second. I like the idea of putting Lysell with Marchand and Coyle because
Give them those two vets.
Not even just the vets. I mean, Marchand's arguably one of the best puck retrievers in the NHL. He's one of the best penalty killers. He's the captain of the team. Coyle is also a big body, a great puck management guy. And I think Lysell, who's someone who wants to be a sniper, get open and shoot the puck. I think
those two players are two great players to take away the pressure or take away, the focus of the defense to open up maybe those couple more lanes.
Yeah, and I think it would be great for Lysell, because if Lysell has some fear of going into the corners, at least with his first NHL season, it kind of alleviates that pressure from him. He is going to need to learn to do that. I think that's one of my critiques of his game that I've seen, is that he kind of lingers. He doesn't really go in there, and you need someone to go in there. He is a little short, but I think that's one thing he definitely needs to work on. Who better to kind of teach him than Marchand and Coyle, especially to protect yourself too, because bigger guys are going to hit you. Outside of that, the third line, as we mentioned, I think it's going to be Trent, Poitras, Geeks, and then it's going to be Jones, Beecher, Kastilic / Brazeau. They'll alternate. It depends on the matchup for me on who plays that game, but they're both big bodies. For defense, Bruins fans, feel free to disagree with me. Let me know in the comments what you guys think and where that's going to go. But I think it's going to be Lindholm, McAvoy, Zadorov, Carlo, Lowry, Peak. And I mean, that's a huge, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the stats on the height and weights of these guys, but they're tall, they're big, and they play physical games. So, I mean, and that's also part of the concern, is the physicality. And I don't even need to tell you who the starting goaltender is, because that's obvious. What do you
If
think?
we sign him,
He'll be signed.
I know he will, but I mean,
He'll be signed.
Technically right now it's up in the air. But
Yeah, he'll be fine.
He'll be in the Bruins.
He'll be fine. Yeah. What do you think of that? Do you think that that's
I have no rebuttals here. I think on defense you can swap the Zadorov and Waterspoon, whatever, to flip around. Oh no, you don't even have Waterspoon on the starting six, do you?
No, I have him as the 7th D, but I think that's important
Seventh.
because you're going to need to rotate some guys in and out of the lineup just to give them some.
And even on that, with the whole, how long has Zadorov played? How many years?
Oh, you think he's 29, so he's on his 10th season, I believe.
He's still a vet, and with the newer faces and the newer people, Ian Peak is not necessarily new, but new to the team. But with Lowry and Waterspoon knew where you can flip those vets around to give them that extra defensive
Boost,
structure.
boost,
Not, but I'm saying like
bump
if
along.
they happen, no, like you know, if they happen to make a mistake, there's still that vet who's at home.
Yep. I think it'll be an adjustment period, I think, for Zadorov and Lindholm and Jones, of course. But I think through training camp, I think it'll be the first 5 games after training camp and after, they'll probably play a few games in preseason too, just to kind of get used to the Bruins style of play. Another guy that's an honorable mention is Gorgi Merkulov, I believe his name is Merkulov. He's a left wing down in Providence. Him and Lysell, I think, are going to be fighting for that right wing spot or the left wing spot. So I think that's going to be an interesting piece to look out for too. So I mean, I would look out for those guys to kind of make the lineup. For me, Lysell needs to make the team. He's 21. He just had, I believe, he had 50 points and I think 56 games in the AHL. That's pretty good for him, especially on a depleted farm system. And I think it's going to be good to kind of see as we go. Now, as where we finish. I genuinely think that we are going to either be second or third in the division because that gauntlet is really going to be telling. Um, and I think we're either going to be just ahead of Toronto or just behind Toronto. But I would anticipate another Boston Toronto matchup next season in the playoffs for sure. Just the way I think the teams have evolved in the Atlantic.
Um, I don't think Toronto. I think Toronto's a wild card next year.
Really? See, I don't. I think they made some necessary improvements, but they did lose Bertuzzi. There's rumors that Nicholas Robertson wants out of Toronto. He's young, and all depends on who signs him. But maybe they go sign Philip Zadina to replace him because he's still a free
Did you
agent.
see who's he fucking I saw Marner waived his no move clause for like 6 teams.
I don't know if that's official yet. I've heard rumors that he has
Or
waived.
he's willing to.
He is willing to, and I think he only waived it for one, and it was Vegas. But Vegas doesn't have the ability to do it because what Toronto wants. So the rumor is that Toronto wants Shea Theodore in return, and that I don't know if I'm giving him up if I'm Vegas because Mark Stone is gonna have a miraculous injury from a sucker punch from the GM, and he's gonna be out for the regular season, but he'll be back in time for playoffs.
First
Coincidentally,
round playoffs.
first round of the playoffs, he's back. He had some miracle elixir, and he's gonna be fine. No, I don't think Toronto's a wild card. I think Tampa or Detroit are the wild cards.
See, I don't know if Tampa makes it in again next year. They're gonna have a tough time. It
They
is
did get
Kucherov's
Jake.
team now.
They did get Jake Gensel. They did get him back. My concern is their aging core. I mean, you look at Hedman, McDonough, Kucherov. I mean, they're not that old, but if you look at it, they're
Oh,
getting
Hedman and
Hedman's older.
McDonough.
He's 33. He's 33.
Hedman, yeah, but you can only play it. He's been that number one defenseman for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
initially I
don't know
actually
how long
thought,
can he really be that number one guy.
yeah, well, it's also how Vasilevsky plays too. I mean, he came off of the back surgery last season, and so that back and knee is really difficult for a goaltender. And we're going to see how well he plays. I mean, their defense definitely isn't up to the par as it was a couple of years ago, obviously, when it was a stupid Studley defense. But I still think it's either them or Detroit in the wild card because Detroit picked up steam on offense. I still think they need some work on defense, and I don't think their goaltending is it yet. But who knows? Maybe they make another acquisition. We'll kind of see where that plays out. They still need to sign Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond, who are still RFAs for that team. So we'll kind of see and keep an eye on that where they go.
I feel like they could potentially make a sneaky push to 3 over.
I don't know if they do, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's gonna be an interesting year. I mean, a lot of other teams have improved. Utah improved for Christ's sake. I mean, I thought Florida lost potency, I thought they were going to drop down to maybe second in the division, but after looking at that roster, I see them still at first in the Atlantic Division. The defense did lose potency. The offense lost a little bit of potency, but I think their coach he's a good coach, and he'll get them there in the first in the division. I think they'll have a lot of high riding off that first Stanley Cup victory, so I think it'll be really good for them. But I don't know it all depends on what kind of Bobrovsky they get in the playoffs and what team they match up with. I think
he's being, he's not that young, and he's now played. You got to think of all that extra time. They're talking about all that extra time on Vasi after those 3-4 Stanley Cups.
Yep.
Bob just played two full seasons all the way to the Cup.
Yep, so, and he's had to stand on his head and on that final too. I mean, Edmonton, even in Game 7, was pushing really, really strong against him. I think Edmonton missed a lot of opportunities. That Game 7 could have gone either way, and it went to Florida. I mean, it was I didn't even know who the hell to root for, but no, good for Florida. They got their first cup in 30 years. I mean, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. Despite Florida fans chirping me and saying we own Boston in the playoffs. Yeah, we've only faced off against each other 3 times, but we own the overall record against you. So your team's only been good 3 times. Sorry. Like, your team's only ever been good 3 times. 96, 2023, and 2024. Congratulations. A salty Bruins fan. Yeah, I don't know. I see the Bruins finishing second or third. I don't see them as a wild.
No, I'm still second or third for the Bruins. We're not winning it.
No, I don't think we'll win the division. I mean, but I think our team's ceiling right now.
Something scary good happens.
Maybe. I think the team ceiling, though, in terms of the playoffs, may at most would be third round. I think if we match up against Toronto, that's another Game 7 win, I think. Just to keep the meme rolling. And depends on who we play in the second round. If Florida advances, I think, again, the Bruins will still have another chip on their shoulder, and it all depends on who's more tired. So I think that's what Don Sweeney was gearing up for, was a deep playoff run, and hopefully that we can kind of get there. But we'll see. Any final thoughts, Cummings?
I'm good.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it. As always, please let us know what you guys think down in the comments section below. We're always happy to hear your feedback and see what your guys' thoughts are. We're going to stick to our schedule. We're going to do this every other Monday up until the season. And then we're going to have a new schedule after that. Probably every week we'll do some roundups and a few other things like that. But stay tuned as we also just kind of hang out over the summer and just talk Bruins. With that being said, enjoy HiBruiNation.
Peace.